Hi there. Welcome back to the Producer Joe Show. We are now in 2025. Hopefully, everybody's year is getting off to a great start. I know mine is. I'm really excited. Got kind of a new studio here. I'll talk about that later. But, anyways, along we go to our first guest of 2025. It's somebody who I look up to a great deal, especially being a native San Diegan. Uh, with that being said, before I get into that, please subscribe, like, all that other good stuff. Smash the subscribe button, as the kids say. Please give me a follow. There's a lot of great shows coming this year. Anyways, here we go. Ken Kramer. Hello, Ken.
Hello, how are you, Joe? Congratulations on the new digs.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I hope it's not too echoey. I'll go into depth later in a later date, but
Yeah.
I took all the carpet out of this room, so now it's hardwood floors, and I'm like, that's kind of echoey, so I put a carpet in here, and now it's better, but I'm much more comfortable in this room than I was in the other, so I'm really happy.
And I'm hearing you loud and clear, so we're good to go.
Oh, good to hear. Good. So anyway, how you doing? How's your new year starting out?
It's been great. I mean, it was fun. Went to a little New Year's Eve event, with the whole tuxedo and the whole thing, and that was fun. Planning some new shows for 2025. Don't do as many as we used to, but we're going to do a few, and we hope they'll be ready to go in the spring to kind of add to the ones that are being seen pretty often again and again and again. And people say, you're going to have some new ones? We are.
That's excellent. That makes me happy. Like I said, I'm a native San Diegan, and every time you're on, we learn something new, a new nugget, and it's just fascinating. And your delivery is about the best ever. It's just a casual conversation. We try to do that here, but I'm not as smooth as you, Ken.
This remains to be seen. You seem very smooth to me. You seem smooth to me, so I think we're okay. Yeah.
So let's start at the start here. I know that you also have radio in your history here. Why don't you tell me where you started out, how you started out, Ken?
Yeah, I was definitely had my beginnings in radio, and I'm not particularly proud. I think the statute of limitations has concluded now, right? I can't be prosecuted for things I did as a kid. Can you tell me?
I think you're safe.
Yeah. Well, like some kids did, I had a radio station in my bedroom, and it broadcast out over, according to some accounts, a fairly good portion of the greater Los Angeles area from my bedroom in Pasadena. So I was on the air there, put together a radio station, was always hectoring friends to come in and be on the radio with me. They reluctantly did it, but we did it. And we had an episode. What happened was I used to run down to my dad's car and tune it to my radio station to hear how it was sounding, and then make sure I put it back to KNX, which was the station he was always listening to, except one time when I forgot. And you can imagine. So yeah, he gets in the car, turns on the key, drives down to Sears, and he's hearing his kid on the radio with a friend. And as I recall, we were trying to like how to master the guitar. So we had a guitar there and kind of, here's how you do a C chord, here's how you do it. He's listening to this, and he's getting more and more annoyed and more irritated. Now, I had fixed up something underneath the house so that I could bypass our phone, and it would go up to my studio where I could take calls. So he drops a couple of dimes and calls, and I say, hold on, you'll be next. So he's on hold at his kid's house. And I mean, at his house, and his kid's doing this. And so I pick up the call and I say, go ahead, sir, you're on the air. And he says, this is your father. And if you know transmitters, you cut off the plates. Thing went off the air. And he talked to me when he got home. And he said, if you're really serious about this, you got to be careful. You got to, do things right, get a license, all like that. And I was interested in the technical side. Went to Pasadena City College, took courses there in sort of the engineering aspects of broadcasting. And I had a teacher named John Gregory, and he kind of said, you seem to have a little bit of a gift for being in front of the microphone. You seem to be pretty gabby and comfortable with that. And I think it's like anything else, you know, if you're a kid and or a young person and you're deciding what you're going to do, when someone encourages you and gives you a little pat on the head and says you're good, you're like, well, hey, I'm getting gratification doing that. So I kind of went before the mic, before the cameras, and got to liking that a lot. And there was a person on TV at that time, and if you talk to a lot of people of my age who are in broadcasting who grew up in the LA area, they'll say, I remember a guy named Ralph Story. You ever hear about him?
I've heard the name, yes.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people. I know Hal Clement and others have said he was a big influence. And if you grew up in LA, you probably did, because he did segments called either The Human Predicament or Ralph Story's Los Angeles. He was a feature reporter. And I thought, oh man, if I ever get the chance, I want to do that. You know, I want to do things about my community that aren't, all about stabbings and murders and everything. Because I watched people who were watching that newscast, and okay, the car crash happened and the murder happened and whatever happened. And then he'd come on and he'd tell his story, and everybody would kind of lean in a little. And I noticed that. And so I want to do that if I ever get the chance. I got to know him a little bit, and today, I mean, I'm able to do that. I mean, there's a lot of things between one and the other, but that's where I am today.
Wow, that's great. I believe that would be him.
That's him.
Yeah,
that's him.
Here we go.
I can't quite make out what it's saying. Top of the
morning, everybody. I know it's a grainy image, a popular CBS personality, but it's a little grainy.
Well, he was part of that, what they call big newscast. Mm-hmm. And that was the name of the big news. And it was on CBS at night, KNXT. And they had Jerry Dunphy and Bill Keane doing the weather. And Ralph Story did his Human Predicament. And I just loved his ability to spin stories, to kind of brighten whatever the news of the day was, and to provide a little bit of perspective on what Los Angeles was like in those days. So I brought that down to San Diego, and I did get to know him a little bit. We worked on a couple of charity projects together, and he passed away a few years ago, but not before I got the chance to write him and tell him how influential he was in my life and how much I patterned my career after what he did. So Ralph's Story was a huge influence.
Well, with everything that you say there, the human interest and all that, I can tell that definitely, you definitely glean from that, and it's fantastic because, like I said, your delivery is very personable. It's not like you're just reading a teleprompter or a script. It feels like you're right there in our living room, and I love that approach.
Well, thanks. I never thought that I was an announcer who had a deep voice or anything, and I never thought that I had the looks of someone from Gentleman's Quarterly or for the anchor chair. But I think if you do what I do and just kind of tell the stories and you're truly interested in them, which I really am. I'm fascinated by the stories that I do. If I'm fortunate, it comes across in the way that I hope I want it to, which is just, hey, I found out something interesting. I can't wait to tell you about it. And here it is. Here's what I know. And it seems to work. I've been at it for a while now.
So your fantastic show about San Diego. Tell me about the origins of this. How did this come about? It's a remarkable show. Amy and I just love the heck out of it.
Oh, thanks. Well, in 1972, if you can believe it, it was a student project. Jim Hancock and I put together this show, and it was on the radio, and we were students at San Diego State, so it was on what was then called KEBS. And Tom McManus, who was our boss, came up with the title for it. And I thought, well, that's kind of the genesis of what I would like to do if I ever got the chance. And so I began doing it on the radio any way that I could. And I had a long period of employment, like in talk radio and in news at KSDO. And every time that we do a contract, they'd say, okay, you can do one about San Diego, or you can do two, or you can do even five if you will also host a talk show for us, or if you will also cover the news. And so that was true. You know, I did that for quite a while. And then eventually NBC liked it. I was approached by NBC Channel 7 to come over and work with them. And again, it was one of those things where, well, you know, we like you doing about San Diego, but we like your storytelling also in terms of covering the news. So each time I would negotiate a new contract with them, I'd say, okay, I'll do that if you give me 2 days a week or 3 days a week or 4 days a week. And it was so strange. And I tell this story, and it's honestly true. I was covering a SWAT one time in La Jolla, and it was, I didn't know, somebody was held captive, and everyone got out okay. It was all right. But as the police were about to do a news conference about what was going on, the person who was going to do the news conference went, "Hey, come here, come here, come here." And so I walk up to him and he says, "My wife and I just love that about San Diego." And, you know, everyone's waiting for the news conference to begin, and he's telling me about San Diego. So there's that. And then the hostage himself is brought out on a gurney, and he sees me and goes, hey, my wife and I, we love that about.
Oh,
so I go back and I tell my news director this, and he says, "Oh, you know, we gotta see if we can." And so eventually there came a point where I kind of had to decide, you know, am I going to be able to stay doing this, or am I not? This is an NBC. And the idea was, well, I think, you know, I really have to try to make a go of it maybe somewhere else. And I end up over at KPBS. I'm leaving out that I had also done it at KPBS for a while too, before they said, well, we just don't have the resources of support to keep this going. A public broadcasting station, we had done a few with volunteers, and then, you know, KSDO said, well, we'd like to have it. And so it's kind of been bouncing around, but there's always been a home for it. And now it's at KPBS. So we've been there a while. We've done, coming up on our 100th show at KPBS.
Awesome.
So we got to have a party or something when that happens.
I'm in.
You're in. All right. I'll see that you're invited.
So how do the stories get to you? Do people email you, or is this all out of your brain?
No, it's pretty much, I guess most of them I kind of come up with myself. I mean, I'm walking along a sidewalk, or I see a street sign, or and I just, there's got to be a story around that name, or there's got to be a story around how that came to be, or, so the stories are there, and I'm just kind of curious, and somebody knows the answer about how a place like Grossmont gets its name. Strange name, Grossmont. Yeah. What is that? And so you do a little bit of research, and you find that it is named for a musical impresario, a guy who had a lot of friends in show business, in music and theater, and his name was William Gross. And he was the co-developer of the place with Ed Fletcher, and so they named it Grossmont. But you're not going to know that, unless someone kind of tells that story and tells you that little thing about San Diego. And then the next time you see it, you're thinking, oh, I know that story. So I get curious about things like that. And then I do get a lot of emails and a lot of people who just come up to me and say, hey, I've got a story for you. And if I think it has those elements that might make an interesting story, I'll make a note of it and I will follow up. So I get a lot of suggestions from people too, just viewers.
It's funny you mentioned the streets. I remember that there was one, was it Nobel Drive?
Yeah.
I remember, and it's backwards, right?
Yeah, there are streets like that. Le Bon up in the area of UCSD. Yeah, and it's Le Bon. Who's Le Bon? Le Bon. But you notice that all the other streets like Stresemann and Pauling and others, these are Nobel Prize winners, and then there's Nobel itself, and then Le Bon, which is just Nobel spelled backwards. Yeah, right. And there are streets like that, and the one I am always thinking of is Pomerado, which is Poway. Merton, which is a community that doesn't exist anymore, but was a little residential community. And then Otto, which is from Rancho Bernardo. So the street that connects the three is Palmer for Merton, which doesn't exist anymore, and Otto. Palmerado,
It's
like that. It's
interesting
fun.
that you say that, because
Yeah.
it's a nice segue, because whenever I describe your show to somebody, I bring this one up. Gosh, another grainy
Yeah.
image. I'm doing terrible today. And Escondido, Poway, and Lakeside, right?
Exactly. The street or the road connected those three, and so they just took the ES from Escondido, the PO from Poway, and the LA from Lakeside, and made Espola. But people driving along Espola don't know about that unless maybe they've seen it on About San Diego. But stories like that, I just love doing stories like that. And when I get the opportunity, that's like that's
fantastic.
That's a little bit like Ralph Story used to do. He would do things like that. Generally, he would do longer form shows. He had a complete half-hour show for a while called Ralph Story's Los Angeles, and it would be all about that one topic. Whereas I kind of have this variety show where if you don't like this story, wait 5 minutes, there'll be another one. And we have a lot more kind of viewer participation where people are sending in things, and there's that kind of interactive quality that I like a lot. I think that's fun.
Well, you not only point out landmarks in San Diego or street signs, you also get to, as I said earlier, human interest, like an older lady that owns a diner in San Diego. Just people who have put their heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears into their businesses, and you feature them, and I know it means a lot to them, and it's interesting for us to learn as well, and makes me want to go there and patronize it.
Yeah, I think that little statement that we make at the beginning, Ken Kramer's About San Diego, the history and people of the area we call home. It's that people part that we also do. I don't consider myself an historian. I really don't. And people come up to me quite often and they say, now that on that intersection of, Main and 3rd, was it the Bensons who lived in that house, or did they sell that out to the Hotchkins? And I have to say, honestly, I don't know that kind of granular detail. I just like telling stories. Sure. And more often than not, they're about history, because those things intrigue me. But I also, when we meet somebody who's interesting and has an interesting story to tell, I love to do that. And I have a particular fondness for people who've got a few years on them and have a passion about what it is that they have been committed to through their entire lives, or that keeps them going, that keeps them alive. And I do that. I remember I interviewed in Chula Vista one time, and I'm sorry that her name escapes me, but she was at the time widely believed, and I think accurately so, to be the oldest person alive. And she was 113 years old. And she sang, and she had this kind of joy about life, and a real sort of what's the term? Kind of I don't know, just sort of intriguing way about her that was also kind of fun. One of the things she liked to do, and I fell right into this, is, I'm interviewing her, say, what's the secret to long life and everything, and she's understanding part of it and not all of it, but answering me. And then she goes, "Shh, come here. She was like, come up real close. And as soon as I got close enough, she went and kind of spat in my face, and then roared with laughter. This was like, this was keeping her going at 100 and what if she was 113. So,
I'm going to take a shot in the dark. Was it Soledad? Was her name Soledad?
It might have been. I'm sorry. Did you know her or meet her?
No, I'm just trying to, I'm not sure if that's her. Just doing a little research. Could be wrong. Not sure.
Might have been, but she was pretty adorable. Sense of humor. Well, not in a vicious way. But just that she could, kind of rear back and roar at that. So, she had a sense of humor. I'm sorry that I couldn't quite make out the picture. She looked familiar. It might have been. I know she was in a care facility in Chula Vista.
Yeah. I appreciate you interviewing these people of a certain age because you you interviewed the lady who did the hippopotamus, and my wife won't stop watching that video.
Oh
And
yeah.
it just kills me because then it gets stuck in my head for the next 2 weeks. But she loves your interview.
Yeah, that is Gayla Peavy. And Gayla
Yeah.
Peavy now lives in San Diego, and she sang that song, I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas. And she was pretty young when
Mm-hmm.
she debuted this song live on the Ed Sullivan Show in front of millions of people, live, no retakes, no nothing. And she had incredible poise and presence to be able to sing that song, debut that song live on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I talked to her about it. And I said, were
Yeah.
you, was that? And she said, even though I was very young, I understood that this was a really, really big deal. And she just has this sort of charming way about knowing that this is a song that still to this day moves people and makes them happy, and this gives her great satisfaction.
It
To,
is.
to
It
yeah,
is a fun
to
song.
have that accomplishment in her life. Mm-hmm.
And the confidence, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So you did mention Chula Vista. I have a coworker, a buddy of mine, who wanted me to say hello. His name is Robert Wolford. He is from
Hello,
Chula
Robert. Hello,
Vista,
Robert.
and he is an ardent viewer and fan of yours. And I just wanted to give him a shout out. And um, he's a big fan of yours.
Robert, I appreciate that more than I can say. People, will come up to me and they will tell me that the show is important to them and that they value me. And I say, I feel the same way about you. Thanks for being there. Thanks for, that energy that you give back kind of keeps me going.
Yeah.
Because, each time we do a contract, I kind of think about, well, do I want to go play? Do I want, what do I want to do? And then the thought is, well, what else are you going to do? This is something that I'm fortunate to still be able to do, that KPBS likes, that to be to discuss the vulgar aspect of ratings. I mean, the show does really well, and so I guess we're going to keep going. At least we're going to do a few more here.
Well, San Diego loves you. I think
Oh,
you
thanks.
know that.
Yeah, thank you.
I did have a question here from another buddy of mine at work. His name is Sam, accomplished veteran of world travel and just
Hi, Sam. Hello,
so
Sam.
he's seen you. He sat with you at SDSU games. What is your attachment? What is your connection with SDSU? I know you're there a lot.
Yeah, well, I graduated from San Diego State in 1974. Became an Aztec for life, which is an alumni, commitment, a lifetime commitment to the Alumni Association, which I'm very proud to be an Aztec fan, and I'm sorry, to be an Aztec alum. And with that goes my long fandom following both Aztec football and basketball, the agonies of both, and the triumphs of both. I can remember going to Aztec basketball games over in Peterson Gymnasium when there might be 1,000 people there, and seeing Tony Gwynn play basketball there. So I just have always followed Aztec football and basketball. And a little group of friends, then we go to the home games and occasionally some away games. And so that department of telecommunications and film that I graduated from was really instrumental in my understanding of, broadcasting, of how to do it, because we had what they called broadcasting labs for television. And we would, I want to say it was on Fridays, we would actually put together and present, shoot, direct, all of it, a live, seemingly live television program. It included a live show in Studio A, a newscast in Studio B, while Studio A was getting ready for the next thing, and then switching back to Studio A for another show. And we had dramas, and we had comedy shows, and we had shows with audiences and music performances and all that stuff. But it was live, seemingly live. I mean, we had a lab time, and it was recorded. And on some rare occasions, those things that we did in that lab went over and were seen on Channel 15 KPBS, which is that TV station is why I decided to come to San Diego. There were other campuses. I was up in Pasadena at Pasadena City College there, and there were other campuses that had radio stations, but San Diego State had a TV station, and that was, well, to the opportunity to come and be on a crew, to work at the radio station, and I was a student assistant there, but also to work at the TV station or be around the TV station was pretty thrilling. And I'm one of those people who, and you've probably interviewed them, who will say, yeah, they'd give me a job sweeping floors, I would have loved it. So just being around that sort of excitement and energy was really thrilling to me. And I'm not going to lie to you. It is to this day. I never lose that. The idea that you can, walk into a room and create something that a lot of people will see, that, their images, the images that you're creating in your mind and verbally expressing can be conveyed to others on a mass scale like that, has always just been a thrill to me, and to this day does. I love radio stations, I guess, kind of particularly, but TV too. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Where
they're fascinating.
They are.
It's magical. I've always appreciated, like you said earlier, the technical side of it. And for me to now be in front of this camera, it's daunting. It's terrifying. Getting used to this side, but I was always appreciative of the technical side of everything.
I'm right there with you, and I was and still am a ham radio operator, which involves some technical understanding of things. And I get on Morse code at night and talk with people all over the world with my ham radio. Yeah, with my ham radio gear. Rarely do I use voice, but I can. And if someone is visiting, I'll turn on the voice or whatever. But mostly, almost entirely it's Morse code. And I made friends in Asia and Europe and all across the United States that I hear, again from time to time, and I recognize the way that they send the Morse code, in a certain swing, in a certain pattern. They say, oh, that's Paul in St. Louis. I know that, and I'll hey Paul, get on, and I love it. I lose a lot of sleep because I'm up talking to somebody in the former Soviet Union or something, or somebody out on a ship who's at latitude, whatever, longitude, whatever, on a cargo ship, and we're sending Morse code, or somebody in France who's just operating with just a couple of batteries and a little something he's put together with a couple of tubes, and we're talking. And I just think that is another magical way that the radio signal gets around and bounces off the ionosphere, skip and all that stuff. It's always fascinated me. Even DXing. Did you do DXing as a kid, broadcast DXing? Yeah. I should explain what that is. If you, and a lot of kids did this, particularly if they were interested in broadcasting, you get a radio, put a big antenna on it, and try to see what was the most distant radio station you could hear. And you would maybe make a note that at such and such a time you played this song, and then you played an ad for the local termite control company, and then you broadcast a minor league baseball game, and you'd send that to them, and they would send you back a card. I don't know if any stations do this anymore. They'd send you back a card with their call letters, and it would confirm that you had received them and you collected them. But there was something very magical about trying to picture what was going on in that little town. What was making news? What were they excited by? What was the weather? And now, since so many shows are syndicated onto so many stations simultaneously, you really don't get that same experience. Rarely, but sometimes. But you'd listen to, I got KOMA in Oklahoma City, or I got whatever, some station, KDKA in Pittsburgh. I actually heard it in Pasadena or San Diego or wherever I was. And somewhere around here, I have a stack of what they called QSL cards, and they're confirmations that you did hear that AM broadcast station. And ham radio operators exchange them too.
Mind blown. I didn't know a lot of that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
including the Morse code deal. And
yeah.
it prompts the question, and I've never thought about it. If you're communicating with people everywhere, I mean, you and I are talking, we're speaking English. Is there one language for Morse code that translates out to any language?
And fortunately, it seems to be the international language is English. It's fortunate for me, but I hear people talking between two locations in Europe, and they're speaking English. I think it's sort of the international language of Morse code
So,
seems to be, and that helps me out a lot because my foreign language skills are not too great unless Morse code is a foreign language. I don't know. It is a different language.
that's just
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm kind of
Oh
mind
yeah.
blown on that one, to be honest with you. Yeah, so well, you got some shows coming up this year. I'm really excited about that. Anything else in your life that you'd like to talk about? We had a great radio reunion a couple months ago.
Wasn't it? Wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Well, radio and TV are pretty much my the things I love the most. I live out in the Fletcher Hills area. Um, have a very patient and long-suffering girlfriend. So we have fun. I'm like our friend Shotgun Tom. I'm a train geek, and we'll go places to ride trains and watch trains and be around them. And
Yep.
that is something that a therapist could best explain. But I have that, and and
Oh,
and you know what I mean. I don't. Maybe you do too.
I, well, I remember you went out to that one out east. Is that Del Zura or did
It's
he
out in
say
Campo. Out in Campo.
Campo? Yes, Campo. Um, yeah, no, there is something about trains. Even just a little train at Balboa Park is just there's something very calming. It could be the sound. I don't know. It's
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I really do. There's something that I think you kind of catch when you're a kid, and it either is in your blood or it isn't. And um, I I know people complain about the sound that trains make, the whistles and all of that, but to me, it's never noise. It's always sound, and to me, it's almost kind of musical. And maybe I'd feel differently if it were waking me up several times a night if I lived right next to the tracks. But with my but I will sometimes just take off, for periods of time and go watch trains. And if people ask me, "What are you doing?" and so I'm gonna go up to Tehachapi and watch trains for a couple of days. They'll go like, "Well, what? What? Do you need to have your meds adjusted?"
well,
But no,
it's
no, I do like it. I do love it.
it's kind of funny because I think that I'm here at my family home again and
Yes.
lived here my whole life basically. Well, there was two sounds that I remember, and one was the Cajon Speedway every Saturday night. I could hear
Yeah.
that thing through my bedroom window. The other one, I still hear it maybe once a week. There's a ghost train that comes through El Cajon, and honestly, I've never really researched to see what it's all about. But as far as I know,
I
there's no train coming through El Cajon, but I haven't researched it. But I hear it.
Well, do you want to know what's going on with that train, or do you want it to remain a mystery? I'll go with you either way.
No, if you know, I would love for you to
Oh,
tell the story.
absolutely. It's called the San Diego and Imperial Valley Railroad, and it really is a train. It never gets on the tracks until the trolley gets off the tracks because it utilizes the same tracks as the trolley. It comes down Commercial Avenue. It goes through, Mount Hope and around, comes through Lemon Grove and through La Mesa and up and around and into El Cajon. And there are two businesses there. One is Toro Irrigation, and one is a paper products company. And they just drop off some cars at each of those locations. Typically, they'll go on a Sunday night. Sometimes they'll go other times, midweek or whatever, depending on what the demand is. They spot those cars at those locations and then bring the empties back onto the trolley tracks and back down into San Diego. And the trolley tracks break off right around Arnell in Cuyamaca. And you'll notice that the trolley goes up over a bridge that crosses over Fletcher Parkway, but the train stays down below because it can't make that kind of grade. But
Oh,
all to say, it is a train which uses the trolley tracks after hours to deliver those items to those two businesses. And people wrote me and wrote me and wrote me, what is it? Is it a ghost train? Am I going crazy? I'm hearing a train at night. So I researched it, took some pictures of it, took some video of it, and did a story on it. So not going crazy. There really is a train that gets out there, usually after midnight, quite often on Sunday nights, and sometimes like on Wednesday night too. So it's really there, Joe.
I guess that's an episode I must have missed.
Oh, a little
I'm
story in there,
shocked.
yeah.
And
Well, yeah,
I guess I didn't really, it was hard for me to put the pieces together because I'm thinking, it's trolley tracks now. Those are trolley tracks. Those are trolley. And
yeah,
I couldn't wrap my head around they're also being trained, used for training.
yeah. Well, the
But
train can
now
run
that you
on.
mentioned
Yeah,
that, yeah.
the train can run on it, but the trolley has got to be done for the day, and then that's
Huh.
what you're hearing. That's what thousands and thousands and thousands of people have heard for so long, and some have written me about and said, what is that? So I did a story about it.
That's great. I got to find that then. Thank you for that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Um, well, all right. Well, unless you have anything else,
Well,
man, I
can i
think,
can I introduce a friend here?
yes. Hello there.
Yeah, this is Nipper, and there's a little story about Nipper. I think this was maybe a stuffed giveaway from Circuit City or something like that years ago. But I started, and Nipper was the RCA dog. You know that story.
Mhm.
If you've ever looked at the old RCA gramophone with a
Yep.
horn, and there's a dog looking in. If you look at the print underneath it, it says his master's voice, and then on some it will say Nipper, Nipper. That was the name of the dog, and this was given to me. It's a little representation of Nipper, and what we started doing during the COVID shows, when we were not able to get in the studio and we were kind of doing the show from the front porch, is we would put Nipper in different places. He'd be under a chair, or he'd be over next to a tree, or he'd be on a fence, and we wouldn't say anything about it. We just, once or twice Nipper would appear in several shows. And I started getting mail, particularly from kids. What's the deal with the dog? What's the deal with the dog? So I'd write them and tell the story of Nipper, the RCA dog, and this little guy who appeared with me, in not very prominent ways, but little ways that people who are really, really paying attention saw, noticed, and were delighted by. So I wanted to introduce Nipper if we got the chance.
That's really fun.
Yeah, we had
That's
fun.
really cool.
I saw him. He was under the chair, and then they'd be watching, and he was back there, back on the window ledge. I saw him.
So to be a bit more
Hey,
subtle
there's
than
Nipper.
and you got your hand sanitizer there, so I'm guessing that was during that time.
That was a COVID show for sure, because we were out there on the front porch, trying to keep social distance. We really couldn't go to interview a lot of people, but what people did is they sent in things. Normally that's one segment of the show, and we one time said, we're going to do an entire show because we can't get out to interview people. You send me in things, and we did an entire show just on bits of memorabilia and little things that viewers sent in, and that was a fun show to do. Yeah,
and I believe that's also part of your email address, isn't it?
it is. Good call. Yeah. If you want to write me, it's Knipper, KENNIPPER 3 at gmail.com. If you have pictures that you think people would like to see, or you just want to talk or continue the conversation, be happy to do it. This has been a hoot.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, Ken. You're one of our favorite people, and we try not to miss a show. Apparently, I have missed one, and I need to go check out the train because I can hear it. I can hear it. So, man, it's really great having you on. Thank you for taking the time, and I do hope to see you real soon. Grab lunch or something.
Yeah, I'm really honored that you would have me on, and I'm glad we were finally able to make this happen. And hope I didn't talk your ear off, but you get me
Oh, still
started.
here.
You get me started. It's hard to stop.
I got you.
I'll just say that to everyone who stops and says hello, or drops me a note, or says how much they enjoy the show, how energizing that is for me, how much I appreciate that, how validating it is, and I just love you for it. Thank you.
Don't
Joe?
ever lose sight of that. The
Yeah.
city loves you. Whenever I mention your name, it's
Yeah.
glowing things come back. So you are very beloved in this town. Just know that.
Thank you, Joe, very much for having me on your show.
All right, buddy. I'm gonna let you be on your way, and then I will shut things down on my end. I appreciate it. I got a few orders of business here to take care of. But again, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming on.
It was fun. Really was. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Check you soon.
Bye. Okay.
Bye-bye now. Well, that was cool. What a super nice guy. He's always been so generous to us. I'm really happy to have him on. I've been trying to get him on for a while. It was just a matter of our schedule. These schedules syncing up. But anyways, yes, I am in kind of a new studio here. I know it looks somewhat the same, but there's big plans for this room. I can't move the camera right now, but over here I'm going to have a couch, and I'll be able to have a musical guest seated here. Be able to just switch the camera with a push of a button, go to the musical guest, or if somebody just wants to be in studio, we can sit on the couch the whole time. But that's really neat. I'm excited about that. Also, just signed a contract for a new show to come to the family of podcasts here, and it is going to be Mary England. She is the CEO, I want to say, of La Mesa Chamber of Commerce. So Mary is going to have a podcast, and she will be at restaurants and places of business to promote the Chamber of Commerce for La Mesa. So I'm very excited about that. Mary is such a wonderful person, and that's going to be a lot of fun to do. But anyways, with that, I will shut it down now, and our next guest next week is going to be teased right here, and it is the coach John Quintera. You've heard him on the radio for many years. So I'm going to see myself out, and here is the tease.